Let's start with our big juggernaut, the one that's got, a special place in our hearts, right? NWSL season is going to kick off sooner than we expect. At the time of this recording, we're already past the 30-day mark. It's going to be a month out from when players have to report to market, where for official preseason camps kicking off for respective clubs. And like you said, Lisa, there's going to be 12 teams this time instead of 10. So it's going to be 2 more teams for us to keep an eye on. The league towards the end of that very busy draft week, they also announced a little bit of a framework, right? A timeline and framework in place ahead for the 2022 season. It was like a little bit of a gift. It was like a little, to kick off the holiday season for fans looking ahead to 2022. And it talked a little bit about an actual start date for checking for preseason in February. It talked a little bit about Challenge Cup, reintroducing that for the 3rd annual year, talking a little bit about the break and everything that's going to be happening in 2022. Lisa, why don't you hit us with maybe some of the bullet points of some of this NWSL framework for the schedule ahead?
It really starts with preseason. That's coming up February 1st. Man, that's a really quick turnaround for those players. But from watching them on social media and staying in touch with a lot of players competing in the NWSL, they're so ready to get back with their teams and with their clubs and compete. And it'll be a 6-week preseason that does also include a Challenge Cup during the preseason. And although the NWSL and the league really dub the Challenge Cup as a tournament within itself, a lot of the teams and the coaches specifically look at it as a preseason to get those preseason games in against competition in the league that you will be competing with the entire regular season, which makes it a little easier for coaches during that preseason to not have to schedule so many friendlies with other clubs or younger teams, college teams that are happening, because they can really say, okay, Challenge Cup is starting. These are going to be our preseason games before we get into the regular season. So this will be the 3rd time that the NWSL hosts the Challenge Cup. It'll start March 17th and it'll end on May 7th. So just about 2 months for these teams. And now there's 12 teams competing. So there will be 3 groups of 4 teams to accommodate all 12 of those teams, double round robin matches. So in your group, you will play 6 matches, 2 against each other team in your group before you even get to the playoffs. And then heading into the playoffs for the Challenge Cup, single elimination, and then whoever wins. So that's really the first trophy that a team can raise in 2022 is the Challenge Cup trophy, because that's really how it starts. And then before they get into the regular season, there will be a little bit of a break for these teams. It's not going to just rush right into it, but it's crazy to think that this Challenge Cup, Sandra, started in 2020 as really like the first bubble throughout this pandemic that is still ongoing. But that's what it was for the NWSL. They wanted to play. The players wanted to play. So in July, they went to Utah. They set up the first bubble for professional sports. And it was the first successful bubble. Remember, I mean, that feels like a lifetime ago, but it's back and it's the 3rd year. Were you expecting the Challenge Cup to make another return this year in 2022?
Yeah, I think the league was pretty dedicated to that. I think when it got announced initially, I mean, it was a very, I was not going to say big. It was a very epic time when it got launched. I mean, it marked history for the league and the sports landscape in the United States, because the league NWSL was the first, contact sport, and pro league to make the return to play in sort of the beginning stages and height of the pandemic in 2020. And based on its success, the league kind of saw it as something that, hey, this is something that we should keep going, moving forward. And that has sort of also been something that coaches in the past have said, that like there needs to be those type of opportunities for the team and their players, for the league to sort of give other players, quite frankly, opportunities to get runs out there. But I don't know if they saw it ever being something as like a preseason type of tournament. I don't know. Maybe and maybe this is still very early for the Challenge Cup, right? It's going to be the 3rd annual one, like you mentioned. And perhaps in the future, maybe they'll restructure Challenge Cup moving forward. But for now, it's still definitely one quick sort of mini tournament that's taking place. And in this case, moving forward, adjacent to a full regular season, it's going to be viewed as like a preseason tournament, which might not
Yeah.
be a bad thing. Last year with the schedule with so many games, it was the longest season ever. You're talking February to November. And
Ooh.
having one of the longer preseasons in history, it sort of felt like maybe players wanted to sort of have something a little quicker, a little sooner for them to get a run out, instead of just sort of having to crack at each other during scrimmages and trainings, right? And wanting to actually go up against some opposition. So I'm excited to see what Challenge Cup will bring in 2022.
Sandra, you mentioned that we could potentially see this landscape change, and I have no insight here. I don't know if you do, but are you talking like potentially, because they're still trying to figure out what the Challenge Cup is? It could almost be like a Champions League type thing or a tournament within a regular season. Like, hello, let's throw some darts at the board. Let's see what sticks.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hate it personally. I'm so used to watching that type of stuff take place in other leagues, right? But I also wouldn't, be surprised if maybe that, they took that into consideration as well, especially because of the type of league it is, right? Where it's a league that is used to like other areas in the world
Mhm.
where they have to maybe take a look at what's going on in front of them the calendar year and say, oh, like this year it's a cycle. There's going to be an Olympics. There's going to be a World Cup. Maybe in some of these years where there's preparation or considered sort of a non-tournament year, or international tournament year, that you maybe have something that rotates within the schedule. I'm sure the players would be open to that as well. So we'll see. But for now, Challenge Cup is being pitched as a preseason tournament, and if maybe they keep it as a preseason tournament, and who knows, maybe the NWSL tries to include something else within that during those small breaks that they have during the season, because we've already seen something like women's ICC come into play, and though it's
Yeah.
not ran by NWSL, it includes NWSL clubs. And then we saw something with the inaugural Women's Cup with Racing Louisville and Chicago Red Stars. So we'll see if that continues, moving forward. These are all small things that take place in the season, but they're always these like mini tournaments, right? That are just in quick succession, like over the course
Yeah.
of a week. So we'll see. I wouldn't be against it, but all with the players' consent, of course, and see how that all sort of shakes out. But I think one of the big things that stood out for me, Lisa, when we were looking at this sort of NWSL framework for the timeline ahead, was the fact that the regular season, is going to look a little bit different. But if you've been here a little while, maybe look a little bit similar, because it has some themes from NWSL seasons past. Like we mentioned already at the top of this episode, how last season was the longest season in NWSL history, that included a very early preseason start, included a championship that took place almost around Thanksgiving, right? And then in between that, you had Challenge Cup, and you had Olympics, and all that kind of stuff, and 24 games to be played between 10 teams. So this year in 2022, it's going to be the first time since 2014 where the format's going to mirror some years prior. So each team is going to play each other at least once, home and away. And versus a 24 game season, this time it's going to be a 22 game season to sort of help balance out the fixtures that take place over the year. But the postseason is still the same. It's still going to be 6 teams, Lisa, right?
It will be 6 teams making the playoff. Top 2 seeds will get a first round bye, which the expanded playoff format we saw first come into play last season in 2021. So they're sticking with it. And the NWSL Championship will be the weekend of October 28th. So already it's shortened. It's shortened. The NWSL Championship in 2021 was November 20th, and now it's going to be October 28th weekend for the championship. So far, teams can win the Challenge Cup. They can be Shield winners, meaning that they finish number 1 in the standings and they have the best regular season record. And then you can be an NWSL champion. Maybe a team will get the sweep, get all 3 of them. But between the Challenge Cup and the regular season, teams are guaranteed 14 games at home and 14 games on the road. So it is completely balanced from start to end this season, which is really huge for these teams, because last year, I think with the 24 game season and going on the road and playing 2 against a certain opponent 2 times at home, once on the road, or vice versa, teams kind of got tired by the end of the season. We saw a lot of injuries coming into play. So overall, I am very happy, frankly, with how this season is shaking out so far, and just the framework that we have for it. A little recap of dates for everyone. Preseason players report February 1st. Challenge Cup will be concluded on May 7th, and the NWSL Championship will be the weekend of October 28th. So 3 big dates that everyone needs to be putting on their calendar, their fresh 2022 planners that they have for this year, and circling those dates, because I know I did. But really balanced schedule from start to end for these teams.